All right, welcome everyone. This is Vernon Lee Jr. I'm one of your co-hosts for the 757 Roundtable. My co-host, Carl Francis, here with the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation. CJ, we got some real interesting guests this week on a real interesting topic. Can you introduce our guests?
Oh man, they don't need an introduction from me. We got my good friend, Coach Robert Prunty from Hampton University, and my good friend, Coach Latrell Scott from Norfolk State University on our line here. And I'm just so overwhelmed for them to take time out of their busy schedules to spend time with us this evening. So I'm looking forward to a great conversation as well.
Well, Coach Scott, we'll start with you and then go over to Coach Prunty. Just give us a little bit of your background, kind of where you grew up, your path to where you are now. And both of you, again, we know some of your story, but for a lot of our viewers that may be getting to know you for the first time, and for those that do know you as a little reminder, could you just tell us a little bit where did you grow up and your path to getting to Norfolk State, and then we'll throw it over to Coach.
Well, I'm born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. Grew up in Richmond, and I graduated from Fort King Military Academy. Going forward, after that, I went and matriculated at Hampton University, which is one of the most beautiful, schools in the history of the world. And I'm jealous of Coach Prunty because of the fact that, he's on that campus every day. And I met my wife at Hampton. We love Hampton, and just so people understand that, Hampton University is one of the best places in the history of the world. But after graduating from Hampton, I went back and I started my football career at Fort King Military Academy. So I worked at Fort King, and then the next year I went to Western Carolina University, left Western Carolina, went to Virginia Military Institute, left VMI. I went from VMI to University of Richmond as an assistant, and left Richmond, went to University of Tennessee, from back to the University of Virginia, and came back to Richmond as the head coach, left Richmond as the head coach, went to James Madison University, and then went from JMU to being the head coach at Virginia State, and now back to Norfolk State, where I've been here for the last 5 years.
Thanks, Coach. Throw it over to Coach Prunty.
Okay, hey, Carl and Vernon, first of all, I'm very thankful you guys invited me to be on this Zoom, especially with Coach Scott. Know about him, know how hard work he is, and know that the direction he's taking that Norfolk State program into. So it's great to be on this with you guys. I was born and raised in Chatham, Virginia, a little small town in the southwestern part of Virginia. My mom and dad had 10 kids. My dad died when I was 10 years old, and my mom died my sophomore year in college. I signed with Kansas State University, and that was when you guys noted that John Blake passed away, and one of my visits was to Oklahoma, and that's how I met John Blake. And even though I ended up signing with Kansas State, Coach Dickey recruited me. I didn't have the grades. I didn't make the SAT score. And I was at Hargrave Military Academy during my senior year. And Ollie Bowman, who was the director of admissions at Hampton University. And I was the only Black at that time at Hargrave Military Academy. And he was at the admission. He said, "Ain't you gonna stop by here? You gonna stop by this table and talk to me?" Me being a Afro-American, I was, just walking through the gym, and he told me about Hampton University. And I came to Hampton University, and my mother said, "It's okay." I signed with Coach White's, and I was at Hampton for 2 years. And then Coach White's left and went to Alabama A&M, and I followed him. My mother had a stroke. And, anytime your mother tells you something, you want to listen. And I know that was something that we always did. So I followed him to Alabama A&M, and I ended up graduating Alabama A&M. And after that graduation, I worked maximum security in Huntsville, Alabama for about 3 years. And I came back home and I started coaching at Gretna High School in Gretna, Virginia. I coached there for 9 years. And then I went on to Hargrave Military Academy, became the postgraduate coach there for 9 years. you know, I left there and I went to Texas Tech University with Tommy Tuberville, you know, and then I left, I followed Tuberville to Cincinnati, and I was with him for 8 years. And then after that, I went to East Carolina, and now I'm very fortunate, man, to be back home by the sea. Like, mirroring what Latrell said earlier, you know, just a beautiful campus, beautiful people, man, and you're just glad to be here.
Well, you know, Coach Prunty, one of the things that I've noticed about you and Coach Scott is that you guys have been to what they call the top level programs in the country. And you guys have seen the so-called excellence and the very best. What has it been like when you know, and I know Coach Scott, you had went to Virginia State for a hot second, but tell me exactly what you took from those experiences that now you try to pour over into your roles here as head coaches at historically Black colleges and universities. Like, what did you take from those experiences that you now employ into how you work here at those HBCUs?
Is that to me or Latrell? Which one?
Oh, either one.
You can go ahead, Latrell.
Well, I mean, the reality of it is all, I mean, like, we love HBCUs, and where we are and what we're doing is magnificent. You know, with the way the world's working right now, you have the opportunity to take young Black men and mold them and help them understand what our culture is all about. And, you know, both Coach Prunty and I have been at the BCS level. But when you get the opportunity to do what we do at our level, and, you know, people don't understand that there's not a real difference in what we're trying to do as far as mentoring young Black men. And I think, you know, with what I'm doing and with what Coach Prunty's doing, we're trying to make sure that young Black men have the opportunity to be successful and do what they do. And, you know, there may be a few less bells and whistles in terms of what we're doing, but at the end of the day, what I'm doing and what Coach Prunty's doing at Hampton, we're molding these young men to make sure that they're great people in society going forward.
Yeah, and I piggyback on exactly what Latrell is saying, is that, you know, when I got to Texas Tech, for example, I could see immediately that help was needed, especially with the Afro-American athletes. You know, and in the conversation that we would have with some of those guys, they would, you know, for example, I had a couple of guys who lost parents, and I could relate to them about that, but also just about their upbringing. But at the end of the day, it was about me not just being a football coach. I became a life coach, being able to mentor these guys. I wanted to see them be successful, whether it was on the field or off the field. And those are some of the things. But I would tell you this, though, is that I ran through a period now when I got to Texas Tech. I wanted to make sure that at Texas Tech that I was just not looked upon as a guy that was there for the Black athletes. You know, because sometimes you can get hired and people, they'll bring you in, you know, and you'll say, okay, I need you to handle this certain group. And that's something that I didn't become a part of. My thing was, I'm going to help all the student athletes. But I knew, me being an Afro-American, it was a calling for me to go way and beyond, because some of those, they had bigger problems. And so I had no problem doing that. I believe in honesty. And I believe in is that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to give my best at it. And that's what I tried to do for Tommy Tuberville, working on his staff. And that's the way I approached it every day. And in closing, just to say that I was not going to be a guy that was going to get used just to hammer Black athletes.
Mm-hmm. Coach, is your talk, you know, for both of you, in talking about mentorship in particular, and that's something that, you know, with the Hampton Youth Foundation, we've been really focused on. We had Coach Tomlin on recently. He talked about mentoring and working with young men. there's a lot that's been going on, as we know. There's been, we had this global pandemic that we're in the middle of. There's a lot of social unrest and a lot of awareness, particularly with Black Lives Matter. Could you share some of the things how you interacting with your players with this? I mean, if you took one of those things, there would be a lot. But you combine both of those now, can you just share some of the things that you're sharing with your players, maybe how you're able to interact with them? I'm sure it's been a lot of Zoom activity with them being away, but how are you been able to mentor and sort of be there for them and interact with them during these times?
I know for me is that now is not the time to hide. My players we're Zooming, but we on teamwork. And just today I sent them out with Lewis, with the passing of Lewis. I sent that information out to them today about him, coming over the Edmonds Pedestal Bridge, because I wanted them to see the video.
Yeah,
because
I
wanted to understand it, what had happened. But also, you got to have those honest conversations with it, and that's what we're doing. We have went back into Black history. We have went all the way from Medgar Evers to Emmett Tibbs to just brutality, the racial disparity that's been going on in the country, but also learn how to handle it. You have to educate yourself to be able to deal with something, and that's what we've been trying to do with our players. We're educating them, because I think the purification of pain is forgiveness, and that's what we're trying to get these guys to see. But educate yourself, and that's what we're doing on Zoom with our players. Each coach individually, we have a session called a mental health session where these guys answer questions. It's 30 minutes daily, and that's when they get a chance to talk about these social issues, because we can't hide from it. These kids see it. These young men see it. They know what's going on. So you can't, I said back a while ago in an article, is that you can't call a team meeting on Zoom and have 100 players and you don't address the issue. It don't work like that. We got to deal with this thing head on.
Coach Scott?
I think it's a great time for us, because it's a time for us as coaches and players and people to be unapologetically Black. I'm having so much fun speaking out and doing what we're doing right now. It's almost it's crazy. And what we've told our guys to do is that we said, hey, speak out, march, protest, do whatever you need to do, in the realms of being safe. But I think the thing that we all need to realize is that as we go forward, that there are a lot of things that we need to do. There are a lot of things that we still need to do. And I think the thing that's been embarrassing for me, and I've talked to people a lot about this, is that, I grew up in Mechanicsville, Virginia. So, born and raised in Richmond, moved to Mechanicsville. So I went to Lee Davis High School. And just a few weeks ago, they voted to change the name of the high school, and I think the great thing about this generation is these guys have gone out and done what they've needed to do to make change, to create tough conversations, to create chaos. And we didn't do that because, our parents, our generation, we were told to essentially be good boys and do what you were supposed to do. And, the thing about the kids that are on my team and that are on Coach Prunty's team, these kids aren't playing with that stuff. They're going out and they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're making change. And I'm very proud of this generation, for doing what they've done. And we've got to continue to move forward and do these things because, like, as I said, I grew up in Richmond. I never thought about taking the monuments down, but these kids in Richmond have made sure that they've taken the monuments down and they've gone forward and done these things. And we've got to, as men in our 40s and 50s, continue to propel and make sure these kids are doing these things, man, because it's special. And I get emotional, man, because I mean, these kids are doing their thing, man, and I'm very proud of it.
What's interesting, just listening to you, to you both, and I know both of your backgrounds, it is just a real huge sense of pride to know that we have men such as yourself and many, many others who are coaching football at the HBCU level, who have come from bigger programs, bigger situations, but have dedicated their life to make it just bigger than football. Have you ever sat back and thought about that? There's a number of coaches, I can't name them all, who've had different coaching experiences. But Coach Scott, you know, we've known each other for a very long time. I know you've been at Tennessee, UVA, head coach of Richmond. I mean, you've been all over the place. Coach, you've been at Texas Tech. But do you have that sense of pride to know that you don't have to apologize for impacting a young person's life? Like when you go into their living rooms and talk to a single mother or a family or whomever, to let them know that we're here to build your young man into a professional, productive human being once he leaves, with a sense of pride. You get a sense of that when you coach?
Man, Coach Prunty is Coach Prunty is a brother that we don't realize. So I started my career at Fork Union, and the rivalry between Fork Union and Hargrave is the rivalry in postgraduate football. To see Coach Prunty as a brother that got that job, you know, I'm sitting there like, man, hey, this is a brother that's in the mix, because Fork Union and Hargrave are the forebearers of all of these things that are going on in college football. And to see a brother get that job back in the day, you know, was you know, I think I was at Tennessee or somewhere at that time when he got that. No, I think I was at VMI or something when Coach got that job. And it meant to go forward to see what he's doing and what I'm doing. And the thing, like, people don't realize, you know, we're in HBCU football because we want to be, not because we have to be.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, people say, hey, you can get stuck. Well, you know what? If I get stuck, I'm fine being stuck, because you know what? I'm stuck with my people. You know, when Hampton and Norfolk State play, it's one of the biggest conglomerations of people in the history of the world. And we'll get back to playing this game soon, but I know this: Robert Prunty can go and coach wherever he wants to go. Latrell Scott can go and coach wherever I want to coach. But at the end of the day, when you get the opportunity to impact young Black people, that's what we're here to do. And you know, I've got a 6-year-old son, and when he gets a chance to go and see my kids do what they do, that makes him feel proud. And I know how Coach feels about what he's doing over at Hampton, and I think you know, it's beautiful. And we're here for the challenge, and we're excited about where we are right now. I mean, and you know, the other thing is for people to talk about, you know, where we are and what we're doing in terms of playing football. Hampton stepped out there and said, hey, we're not playing. And people were like, well, you know, what are they doing? You know what they did? They set the bar, and they said, we're not going to play because we know that this pandemic affects our people. And with Coach Prunty and Dr. Harvey and Brother Marshall, the AD, they said, hey, we're not going to do it. And we followed them. We followed behind those guys in terms of going forward. I mean, it makes perfect sense. So, man, I'm happy to be where I am. I'm excited to be where we are.
You know, a good example of, you know, sitting here listening to Latrell talk is probably the better example for me to use. You know, Norfolk State, and I'm not saying it because he's on the Zoom with us, but Norfolk State is very fortunate to have him. Think about what you just said, Mr. Francis. This young man been to the University of Tennessee, 100-some thousand people, been the head coach of Richmond. You know, look at the places and look at the people that he didn't came in contact with. You know, now, and then he's a young guy. So he could be at another BCS school or possibly NFL. Mm-hmm. So you know he has to have a passion for the HBCU level and with those young men he worked with, because it would be easy for him to bail if he didn't care. You know, so when you get to looking at the resumes, I think that when you're dealing with a young guy like Latrell Scott, he probably put a bigger stamp on it coming down and coaching at the HBCU level than I do, because of youth and because of what they're looking for at the BCS level and at the NFL level. So that's a prime example of somebody caring about young men, period, especially at the HBCU level. So I think that it starts right here with us in this Zoom meeting with Latrell Scott, an example that he has set.
Coach, one of the things you kind of remind me of in terms of the different level, obviously different conferences, type of play. There's been a lot of discussion. I'm very interested in getting your perspective on, you know, sort of payday games and concepts, because the reality is HBCUs endowments are typically smaller, athletic budgets are typically smaller. And again, you know, I went to Howard, Carl went to Virginia Union, and the love that we have for HBCUs is, you know, is unquestioned. But as alumni, we know we need to do more as alumni. We know that there's more in terms of resources that need to be poured back into the athletic departments. Could you just talk about even strategy around scheduling, you know, big games, or, you know, playing some of the, you know, top five, so-called top five conference games and balancing that out? What are your perspectives on that? Because, yeah, I know there's a lot of alumni, and I know it's sometimes some interesting debate on, you know, that approach. But again, the reality is, you know, from a resource standpoint, there are things that HBCU programs have to do that maybe some others don't.
You know, I've been fortunate coming to Hampton, because just like what Latrell said, he said, you know, Dr. Harvey made it clear, hey, we're not, you know, it's not going to be football this fall sports. You know, he said that we're going to do classes virtual. So we out front put the health and safety of our student athletes. So giving you an example of, we're not going to go out and play a bunch of teams, BCS teams, because we feel like, you know, we want to make sure that our team is not beat up, you know, and then we think we have the resources that we'll be okay based on my conversations. But we will play Old Dominion a game, but we're not going to put our schedule like a jet lag with 3 BCS teams just to make money. You know, you noticed last year we played Liberty, but I'm not knocking the other schools who do. You know, I think that it goes with a lot of planning. It's what your financial endowment is. It has a lot to do with that. So, you know, but I'll tell you this, you can clearly see what conferences haven't canceled the season. And that tells you how important it is. If you go look at the boys in the SEC, the ACC, and the Pac-10, the Big Ten, there's a reason why they haven't canceled the season yet. So that gives you an idea if we want to get into financial gains and all that. There's a reason why it hasn't been canceled yet. And I don't think, I really don't see FCS schools other than that's making a substantial amount of money other than JMU, you know, the North Dakota States and schools like that. But other than that, as far as just you know, a real substantial amount, you know, we might have 3, and maybe Latrell can help us with this. We might have 4 FCS schools that make that kind of money.
You know, well, I mean, when I was at the University of Richmond, you know, which was kind of like you know, one of the top programs in the country, I know this, that when Mike London and those guys won the national championship, they lost money at the FCS level. And, you know, I think that's the thing that people don't realize. You know, now Coach Prunty is fortunate because, you know, Dr. Harvey will not play those games. Us over here, you know, we've played some games that I've been like, man, come on now. But, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, sometimes the football team has to go out and make money for the school. And we understand that. But, you know, I think the reality of it is we understand who we are and where we are. And I think what Coach Prunty just said is this. I think for us to say the amount of money that we're making or the amount of money that we're not making was not more important than our kids' health and welfare. And when you pull the plug on a season like this, you're understanding that, hey, we're not going to make so much money. We don't have TV contracts and all that revenue to where the kids' health and welfare, was more important than what we're doing. And I think it's beautiful for us as HBCUs to step out there and say, look, we're not going to do it, Hampton led the way. And I think, if Hampton and Dr. Harvey and those guys didn't step out there, I think a lot of us would still be kind of, dragging our feet. But, we are where we are right now because of, my alma mater, leading the way. And I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of Coach Prunty and, Brother Marshall and those guys and Dr. Harvey for doing that.
Coach Prunty, I want to kind of talk to you and Coach Scott about the Black college football athlete experience. And it's kind of changed now. We've all had that experience. And I played for Coach Taylor at Virginia Union back in the early 90s. Yeah, Coach Taylor, he's a special man. Special man. Yeah, yes, he is. Legend. So, but what's different today than back then was that you had the high-level Division I athlete transferring and getting second chances at HBCUs. And that's what I've noticed, coming from, back in the early 90s, late 80s, things of that nature to today. You see so many rosters full of transfers now. What have you seen in their experience of, for whatever reason, they leave these major institutions and they come to HBCUs? And Coach, you had Francois, who's a great young man, and I'm Coach, you just had a big time commit come in. Tell me, how they have been able to adjust and how was their role and how did they feel about being in this new environment coming from other high level situations?
Well, I can tell you what the guys who transferred here have told me, DeAndre and a couple of other guys have told me. The thing that they got at Hampton was they learned who they were. They had a chance to learn about their history and then what it meant to them and their self-worth as an individual. And also the guys talked about the smaller classrooms. Of course, DeAndre would tell me some of the things that he do miss, as far as facilities go and different things like that. But overall, he said he felt as though he was at home. He felt safe. He felt safe in the classroom. When I say safe in the classroom, I'm talking about he felt like he could achieve academically and not struggle. Some of the guys, they talked about there's players at this level that was better than guys at Florida State. He's made statements like that. But I think what I was more proud to hear DeAndre say was, and I'm just using DeAndre because it was a couple other guys, Cortez Lewis and Wake Forest and other places, when he said to me that I learned my history and I understand who I am. When a man can understand who he is, that's when he can make a difference in this society, because there's a lot of people walking around don't know who they are. And so that's what touched me more than anything.
I think the biggest thing, when I was at Hampton, like we would transfer you. And the reason that Hampton got going and the reason that we got on the map was because of the players that we had to transfer in. And, guys like Coach Taylor and those guys, they really understood what these players needed. But I think when you talk to these kids right now, when you talk to kids at other places, when they come in, they're just overwhelmed by the access that they have to the coaches. Just the fact that they can pick up the phone and call the head coach and say, hey, coach, what's good? Or, hey, I need this or I need that. And I think just, man, like with these guys having an opportunity to deal with us and understand, that we're there for them. Robert's got kids, I've got kids, and we treat these guys a different way. But sometimes when you're on a BCS level, it's a situation where you don't really know those guys or you don't understand what they do. I know for a fact that, I've got a 6-year-old, and my 6-year-old is heavily involved in our program, and he understands what these kids are doing, and this is what these kids are like. You know, so when you get a kid like DeAndre Francois that comes to Hampton, he gets Coach Prunty, but he also gets Hampton. And you know, when I get a kid like Greg Hangerson that transfers from FAU to Norfolk State, they get the whole network. They get the love that they're not getting at that place, because I mean, obviously we know. I mean, we know who we are as a people. I mean, we know that aunties and uncles and cousins matter, and I think that's who we are, and that's what Black colleges give these young men when they get the opportunity to come to us and be around us.
Just to carry it out a little bit further, I would say probably, especially in the last couple of months, but especially the last 30, 45 days or so, I mean, there's been voices about, even in the last couple of years, about top athletes going to HBCUs, but particularly I would say in the last several weeks, last 30 days, even more so with some recent, on the basketball side, some recent commits. But now, from what I've seen, is more on the football side, more top players or top ranked players that have HBCUs on their sort of final list, which I don't care what HBCU went to. I mean, we're all cheering for each other at the end of the day. Have you felt or seen a little bit of a shift in the last 30 days or so based on just this movement that's taking place?
I have, and let me tell you why. Because the players are starting to educate themselves. I was looking at it today. Do you realize that over 23 HBCU athletes are in the Hall of Fame, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? When you sit down and you tell a guy about a position, you recruit a receiver and say, hey, Jerry Rice played that position. Running back, Walter Clayton played that. Or defensive end, Deacon Jones. Let me talk to you about these guys. That's why I say that the power of understanding your history and these guys, see, because if you're good enough now, they're going to find you. They found them back in Grambling. And I tell them, and one of the things I do when I bring the guys in that, transfer, I show them that game, man. I got it off of YouTube, but I found it. It's the 1968 game. Between, when Grambling went up there, when Eddie Roberts went up to Yankee Stadium to play Morgan State, and everybody was running.
Oh, yeah.
They was, hey, I hope somebody showed up at the game, and they were warming up, and then look, over 6,000 people showed up. Come on, man. Look, that's 6,000 people. And they fill Yankee Stadium up, and you talking about, and then the game, look, it was 4th and 1, and they stopped them on the goal line. How exciting is that? Mm-hmm. So when you get to talking to these guys about that, man, you show them highlights. Man, you get to showing these guys, you're like, who is that, coach? That's your history. And that's important. That's why I'm really emphasizing understanding your history, and not just from the athletic standpoint, from the Thurgood Marshall, the Booker T. Washington, all that. If they can get the history, then I think you can get a chance, because once you educate a man, it opens the world for him.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this, man, and like Coach Prunty touched on it. I have played in Giant Stadium in the Hampton Grambling game where there were 60,000 people. I played versus Florida A&M in the Circle City Classic, 70,000 Black people. And when you look up in those stands, man, I'm trying to tell you, when you look in the stands and you see everybody that looks like you, it's powerful. And, I've played in those games where I remember when Eddie Robinson was trying to get 400, and Joe Taylor said, we ain't giving him 400 on us. But what I'm saying is, man, it's such a phenomenon that, man, when you get the opportunity to do this, and man, I'm not going to say when we get these kids back here and they understand what we can do for them and what we have to offer them, it's going to be powerful. You look at the young man that chose to come back to go and play ball for Howard. He's a beacon. He's a beacon of light, because at the end of the day, He's going to do it. Somebody else is going to do it. Like the young man, Mikey Williams, who, you know, his mother was at Hampton when I was there. You know, so he's got Hampton and Central and Norfolk State in his conversation. Man, listen, and I'm trying to tell you this, and I'll tell people all the time, the pandemic has done what it's done to us, but you let us have the Bayou Classic in the spring. You let us get to a point where we can play Norfolk State Hampton April 1st. Man, it's on and popping. I'm trying to tell you, if ESPN televises us playing Hampton and Norfolk in the spring, it's going to give these kids an opportunity to understand, hey, this is where we need to be, man. And I'm just looking forward to it.
Man,
Hey, let me say this, Carl, for a minute.
yeah, sure.
The reason why I want to say this is that we were in the locker room and I saw something that I think is a factor that Francois, we had homecoming here. And I went over to it, like he had tears in his eyes. And I said, what's wrong? And he had never seen HBCU homecoming, man.
Mm.
And I asked him, I said, he said, what are, you know, a couple of other guys who transferred said, what are all these people here? What are they doing? They was out there, you know, selling paraphernalia and different things, food going on. And he said, the guys asked him, say, you're not gonna go back to your homecoming? See, that's when you talk to those kids, when they transfer in them schools, say, that's a question. Are you gonna go back to your homecoming?
Mm.
That's something to think about. Because every kid that enrolled in Hampton as a freshman, they said, we're looking forward to coming back one day for homecoming. And that's another reason to make HBCU special. Because you become a part of something.
And man, I'll tell you this, like, I have never, ever, ever been back to Hampton because my job dictates what I do. I had the opportunity, man, probably 3 or 4 years ago, to go back to Hampton homecoming because I think we had a bye week. And just, you know, I didn't go into the game because obviously, you know, the MEAC has their rules. But man, being in the parking lot at Hampton and seeing my teammates, seeing my coaches, seeing the young people that are impacting our society, man, this is what we do. And I mean, and it's so lovely and it's beautiful, man. Like, so my wife gets a chance to go every year. I don't get a chance to go. She comes back every year and tells me, well, hey, I saw so-and-so homecoming. Man, I mean, what we have is something special. And I really hope that we get the opportunity to showcase these things sooner than later.
You know, one of the things that I've noticed and it fills my heart is knowing that the way you guys are talking, coaches, are who you really are. And when you talk about the difference between going to a major university, an HBCU, and having that home, that connection, I mean, you guys are accessible. And you guys are there for tough times in class, tough times at home, the challenges that a lot of our young men face every day. And Coach Scott, one of the players that I paid close attention to was the young man made a moral decision. He made a conscious decision to say he did not like the environment in which he was playing football and getting an education. And for this experience and what we're in right now, for him to make that decision says a lot about all of our youth around the country to say, I don't want to be in this experience because it doesn't fulfill me as an African-American young man. And for him to say, I'm not just going to transfer from Liberty and go to UVA or go to Virginia Tech and all these other schools. He said, no, I'm going to Norfolk State University. How did that make you feel, Coach, when you got that call?
Well, you know, so the thing with Tank, like, so Tank's situation was complex. So if you look at the way Tank's high school situation went, Tank committed to Maryland. And when Maryland had a coaching change, they decided that, you know, he wasn't the guy that they wanted. So he kind of went to Liberty at the last minute.
Gotcha.
And, you know, Tank has been one of those guys in the area that he's been a baller since he was in 8th grade. and everybody, everybody wanted Tank, and but when this thing happened, I mean, all I did was obviously, so the people were going to reach out to Tank because of the climate, and I said, Tank, listen, I said, here's where we are, here's what we're doing. I said, you have a scholarship offer. I said, I understand where you are. I said, get back to us. But the thing that I told him was, I said, look, I said, young brother, I appreciate who you are and what you did and why you did it. And I said, man, I said, because you had, the audacity or the balls to say, I'm not going to sit here and be a part of this Jerry Falwell thing. Mm-hmm. And all the comforts and all the things that Liberty had to offer him, he wasn't about it. So he had offers from Ole Miss, West Virginia, and all those things, and he just made a decision. He was like, "Hey, coach, I've been there, I've done it." And the reason that he came to Norfolk State, based on what he told me, is because we shot him real. We shot him real, and he knew that we didn't have all the trappings and all the offerings that those people had. And I said, we can coach the same way. We can do the things that all those people can do. I said, but the bottom line is, man, we look like you, we care about you, we love you, and that's why I came here. And we're fortunate to get a 4-star kid here with us.
Coach, just and that sparked something else in terms of, this common theme and feeling like home, and the student athletes getting a different experience at HBCUs. And obviously it starts with both of you as head coaches and helping to set a tone, and as well as on the academic side. But coaching staffs are hugely important. And I know sometimes, again, thinking about resources, picking certain staff, one of the things I've noticed both about Hampton and Norfolk State, you guys have brought in some real top-notch assistant coaches. Can we talk about that a little bit in terms of how that conversation goes? Again, you both have, really interesting track records at different levels, but what is it about the assistant coaches and the staff that's helping to bring that? Because you guys can't be everywhere all the time, but how are you bringing in your staff and getting those guys in?
Well, I think for me, and I look at Coach Prunty's staff the same way. You're trying to surround yourself with mirrors of you. And it's not about black and white. It's not about this or that. You're trying to make sure that you've got the best people that you can possibly have on your staff. Everyone on my staff, I have a personal tie to. Be it they played for me, they work with me, they've done things with me. Because when I talk to parents, I tell them all the time, hey, job one for me as a head coach is to make sure that I surround your kids with people that are capable and that care about your people. And when I look at Coach Prunty's staff, like Mark Baycoat, Vic Hall, those are guys, man, that I would steal from him tomorrow if I could have. I love Mark. Vic played for me at the University of Virginia. I tell people all the time, like when it comes down to Vic Hall, people say, who's the best player you've ever coached? Vic Hall is the best football player that I've ever coached in my life. So I understand what type of football coach it is. So I know what Coach Prunty has in Vic as a coach. But all we're trying to do is continue to surround our kids with people that, mirror us and make sure that that they have, that our kids have great people around. When you look at the guys that have left my staff and gone on to other opportunities and done great things, it's crazy. We've got guys with the Packers. We've got guys with, Oregon State, Hawaii, so we're hiring good people. So the myth about coming to black colleges and getting stuck is bull, because we're hiring coaches that we can hire and they can come and be successful and have the opportunity to go and do other things.
For me, I think that, being my first time being a head coach at the collegiate level, it takes a lot of prayer, man, just sitting and talking with God about it. Because this thing, you got to get it right. You got to get it right. Because you got these young men lives involved. You're dealing with understanding the dynamics of handling your players, handling them academically, and also just being able to, you just don't coach them, you teach them. So, you know, I've been fortunate. I got some guys on the staff that are really, really good guys. And that's why I say the HBCU just not haven't changed with players. It's changing with coaches. Because you look at Latrell's staff and you look at my staff and you see probably 70 to 80% of our coaches are BCS coaches. I've been at that level before. So they understand the opportunity. That old thing where they say you get stuck at HBCU, you can't come out. No one's listening to that anymore. See, they looking for, not only are they looking for good X's and O coaches, but they're looking for good people. See, the big word is loyalty. If you can get coaches that's loyal to you, we ain't gonna always agree, but we gotta do what's best for the student athlete. And you gotta teach them. And I think that's where it all starts at. And so it's, to me, that coaching staff thing is a thing where you have to constantly, stay in communication with each other. And I mean, you have to do things together. But just keep in mind, one thing that I have did a little bit more now is I prayed more on the decisions that I make. And that have helped me a lot. And that mirrors what Latrell just said, to be able to have a guy like Vic Hall, who played quarterback for me, back at Gretna High School. He was my quarterback, and we won them state championships back then when I left and went to Hargrave, and Mark Baker. Man, unbelievable guy. I'm talking about just, you like seeing him. I mean, every day, man, he got something. His title on this staff is a professor. Because I don't know if it's going to be a history lesson or it's going to be, he sent out a picture the other day, or he cooked a homemade apple pie and had the dough. And I said, man, I ain't seen that since my grandmother. You don't know nothing about that, Bako. But just to give you an idea of what type of guys, and then to get Commission, I coached against him back when he was at Boston College. And I mean, he coached B.J. Rogers and those guys. The guy got 27 years in the business. So, just a lot of praying, man, and asking God just to give me the staff to need to help not only help these young men, but help Hampton University to become a better program.
One of the things that is really obvious why we have you two great men on, besides you being great friends of both of ours, is we want to talk about those 757 kids. We take a lot of pride in that in the league, at the league level where I work, guys that are playing in the league, guys to this day, we can be in Los Angeles, we can be in Seattle, we can be wherever. And if I say I'm from Hampton, Virginia, oh, I heard of 757. So tell us about how special it is to be the home base for some of the greatest athletes in the country to play football. Tell us what that is, the talent pool that exists in the 757 area.
I'll let Latrell go first.
Hey, listen, I mean, so look, so it's crazy for me because I'm an 804 boy, but so I'm an 804 guy. So
you honorary. You've been out here long enough.
But listen, so when I got here, I told these people, I said, listen, we're going to build our program locally, then regionally, and then nationally. And if you look at what we've done with our 757 kids, because, no knock on anybody else. When we got here, we didn't have a ton of 757 kids on our roster. And, in the last few years, our 757 kids are the kids that are going pro. Bobby Price, those guys that they're going to these training camps that are doing their thing, man. But just to be a part of the biggest talent hub to me in the country is nuts, because I remember being a player at Hampton, sneaking out of curfew to see Ronald Curry play. So we were in training camp or on game nights breaking curfew because Ronald Curry was at Hampton doing his thing. And when I started at Fort Union, I had Muffin, Armando Curry, I had Biscuit, Marcus Higgins, and just the 757, understanding these guys. Zon Burden was a wide receiver for me at VMI. You know, so man, just having these guys, man, understanding what this area means to us is great. I mean, it's just, you know, the crazy thing is that, and I laugh like with Coach Prunty, man, look, I told people, like, when I was at Hampton, I never played with a guy from Hampton High School, you know, you know, because Coach had his own thing, man. But I mean, it's the reality of something in the water is real, man, because there's something in the water, man, and we got ballers, and I'm very proud of the fact that, man, that we have access to these young men.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I learned about that 757 quick now. And it goes back to Moton Hall, room 215, back in '84.
Hey, Coach, hey, look, I live in 308.
Hey, and I'm coming to Hampton from, you know, it was 804 back then, old Chatham, Virginia.
That's right.
And I came down here, and man, the first, I look up and Marco Stacy was the quarterback.
Marco Stacy, yeah.
He running his mouth.
Marco grew up right around the corner from me.
Yeah, I walk right in, and my roommate is George Lumpkins, who had transferred from Union.
Big Lump, yeah.
Lump, and I mean, Lump won't no more than about 210 pounds, but played outside linebacker, knock your head off. I mean, you know, and I was trying to see what the big argument was about. Reggie Jackson, Big Ike, and all them was from Florida. And they were arguing about the 757. And I tell you, man, when we got to talking about the players and they got to bragging about Dwight Stevenson and these guys, and I learned about the 757 then. But I tell you, we've been pretty fortunate. Right now we have over 16 guys on the staff, you know, on the team from the 757. Wow. And those guys are doing well. And you know, just to give you an idea of some of them, I got them right here. And because I like to mention those guys. And you know, we got Elijah Washington. We got Trey Jones from Bayside. We got Ramon Copeland from Austin Smith. Kevin Watts from Atlanta Shore. Darren Butch from King Fork. You know, we got Jairee Hardy from Kings Fork. You know, we got Keyshawn Moore now that was going to Liberty and came to us. So we were glad to get him. Devon Orr and Tyler Thompson and DeAndre Falk. And, you know, so we got a bunch of guys. You know what I was, you know, you always want to you want to bring a mixture of kids in. And we was able to get Brandon Richardson, a long snapper from Tabb High School. And the reason why I say that is that, you know, you want to I would like to see us get a few more white kids, you know, and I don't shy away from saying that because one of our quarterbacks is white. And I would like to get a few kids in the area. And that's one thing that when I go around to the 757 high schools, I would like to see more white kids, you know, invest in these HBCUs, you know, especially Norfolk State. And, you know, and that goes back to what you guys talked about. You know, they understand that Latrell been to Tennessee. He's been to Virginia. He's been to these places. So, you know, we have this to offer at Hampton, but not just that Virginia Union and its schools. You know, it would be nice. You know, I really would like to see at least out of the 100 kids that we do have, if 10 of them was white. And right now we get 4 of them are white on the team. I would like to see that number increase a little bit, but I would want them to be local kids from the 757 area. I think it would help us. It would help us, you know, fan wise and just economically wise, you know. And that's just me thinking as a coach. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Coach, it's interesting when you talk about recruiting, and I'm gonna kind of take it a little bit in the opposite direction, where I've had friends of mine or friends of friends that you know, fellow Howard alumni, but are on the West Coast, and you know, they've had kids that have said, "Hey, I'm trying to get in contact." Literally, this has happened. You know, I've got a kid. I know someone. I don't know how to get in contact with any of the coaches at Hampton or at Norfolk State. I mean, to the credit, I think both programs. I mean, I'm just giving those examples, and those are real examples. But particularly on the West Coast, and they've already have a certain consciousness and a mindset. They're already there and wanting to attend a HBCU. but there's only obviously a certain number of scholarships. But I also know to build up a program, you got to get on walk-ons. You got to get some guys that might be willing to, take a red shirt, whatever the case is, to help build that program and that depth. How do you balance maybe just a little bit on recruiting, even for West Coast and for those that are watching now? I mean, should they be going to camps and trying to get on the radar? Do they send an email in? Because I know for certain a lot of those West Coast, some kids out there are very much interested in HBCUs and particularly your programs.
Well, we got a recruiting coordinator, and they can send them information in, but also the coaches have different areas they go to around the state. But I can tell you this much, is that we better have an end out there in California, because we're not going to have the resources to go out there and recruit like that. I'm not going to sit there. You're talking about Hampton. I would be thinking we're going to be 60% the state of Virginia. That's we're going to get our kids from the state of Virginia, and we're going to dip into Maryland, and maybe we'll get 10 or 12%, and then North Carolina, and then we'll get a few from Georgia. And we pick up maybe 4 or 5 from Florida. But we got to be, when we start recruiting in the spring, my guys go with a 6-hour radius, because I think that's what's going to support us, as far as and who we really legitimately got a chance at. Because my thing is, I think 1 out of 10, that's a long way for a kid to come from California and all them other schools, that's FCS schools, to come to Hampton. So we better have an end on that, unless we could lose a lot of money. And we were struggling for offensive linemen, man. And I think that I lost a substantial amount of money in recruiting out in California this year, and we didn't get neither one of the kids. And I just think that I gotta bite my teeth in that 6 month, that 6-hour radius, as far as recruiting go. And maybe I might dig a little bit more down in that Georgia area a little bit more, especially when it comes to offensive and defensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, just like Coach said, I mean, so if you look at the money and the value, so an in-state scholarship, so Hampton's private, so they've got a specific number, but for us at Norfolk State, so if we sign a player from Virginia, it's $21,000. If we sign a player from anywhere outside of Virginia, it's $33,000. So for us to sign a $30,000 player versus a $20,000 player, he better be legit. And the reality of it is, I mean, for us to have the ability to go to California or Georgia or Florida and those places, we just don't have those resources. And I think, because when you talk to a lot of coaches, hey man, the HBCUs don't come out here. Well, we can't afford to, because, the reason that we recruit the 757, the 804, all these places, because that's what makes financial sense for us. And, as you've come to see, Virginia is one of the best football states in the country. And obviously with the number of FCS and BCS schools in our state, we do have to go outside of the state to get some players, but there are a lot of players here in Virginia that we can get. So obviously, as I said, I mean, we're going to start with a local, regional, and national approach to recruiting those guys.
Yeah, I think, those points of emphasis in terms of recruiting is very important. I think a lot of people don't understand that. It's not that you don't want to reach outside your normal, as you say, Coach Prunty, the 6-hour radius, but sometimes the sacrifice and the budgets are just different. But to Vernon's point, because I've had the same experience, that there are kids from Los Angeles that get under-recruited, overlooked. They can't go to UCLA, Fresno States of the world, and then they have parents who have migrated. Like some parents have left Los Angeles, went to Howard University, went back to LA, and it's like, man, you want to be a part of this experience back in Hampton, but Hampton doesn't have the money to go back and forth to woo you to come back to Hampton. So I think that's very important as we continue to grow and see this evolution of players, looking at HBCUs as an option. you know, and I agree with you, Coach Prunty, when you say, you know, having white athletes. Now we're talking about that real balance. Okay, now we're talking about that real balance of understanding that HBCUs can offer high academic levels, a great experience of college with just a lot of history on the Black experience, which is always a good thing for us. So I want you guys really to kind of touch on a little bit about, I think Vernon may have mentioned it. I love talking about the impact on our young men and what that means. Can y'all add a little bit more on that experience for a parent who's listening to this and always wondered about, you know, if I'm thinking about sending my son to, you know, University of North Carolina, but I really want him to have that Hampton University, Norfolk State experience, what would you sit down and tell that parent if he or she or both are looking at the two experiences, saying, you know, I really want to send my son to Hampton, but this college over here is a lot bigger, a lot more money. What would you tell that parent about coming to Hampton University or Norfolk State?
No, I think for me, Carl, it's just like this. When you come to an HBCU, you're getting the uncle, big brother experience. You know, I don't know. I can't even describe the level of friendships and the level of family that I got from Hampton. You know, just having teammates that made me understand where I was. Like, you know, I went to college to play football. I didn't go to college to graduate from school. And then when I saw certain guys graduating from college, I'm like, well, damn, if he can graduate from college, so can I. And then when you deal with the professors and when you deal with the people at Norfolk State, if you don't go to class, they're going to say, hey, look, coach, I haven't seen Carl in class in 2 days. And if you're a social security number or if you're a sign-in list, you're not going to get that. And I think just the value that we give as African-American people saying, okay, listen, I've got to get Vernon graduated from this school so that he can go on and do something with his life. I've got to get Robert through this class. You know, I think you lose some of that at the other levels. And I think just the intimacy of HBCUs is the reason that we've survived. And obviously we know that HBCUs came about because they wouldn't let us go to their schools. And obviously the reason that we've survived is because we realize that when we move into these suburban areas and we do these things, we do all those things, some of our kids still need to go back to our people to get what we need. I mean, like I said, I went to Lee Davis High School in Mechanicsville, Virginia, and my wife went to New Kent High School in New Kent, Virginia. But at the end of the day, we went to Hampton because Hampton gave us what we needed to get back to our people and be who we are. And be it football, be it academics, be it whatever, you know, the worst thing we can ever be a part of is Black people that don't know Black people.
I think it goes back to an old saying that I learned when I went to Texas Tech. I don't think people realize Bal Bryant made the statement that when mama called, you gotta go home. And I think that's what's happening now with the HBCUs. I think mama's calling. And the thing that I tell the parents, especially, you know, a lot of them, you see kids on TV, you see them when they play, and they say, hi, mom. That don't mean they don't say hi, dad. Most time, probably, they just say hi, mom. Because, you know, dad, I got you. But the point I'm trying to make is, I tell them, you know, pray on it. Pray on it, do your research. But then you got to win that mother, and you got to win that father, and you got to win the child. And I tell the mother straight up, I said, here, if your child come to Hampton, and if you get sick, Coach Prunty ain't gonna have no problem come seeing you in the hospital. If somebody in your family passed away, I'll bring that child back to the funeral. I'll sit in the back with him. Because I understand, what we got to understand when we dealing with these young men, that's why I was so out front with this pandemic is. In the presence of death, everybody's equal. And so you got to be up front with these young men. And then you got to tell them about the history. See, Hampton has a rich history, man. You get into this civil rights thing and you look, the young man who led the civil rights movement, Dr. Martin Luther King's mother, Alberta King, went to Hampton University. So now you're starting to get into some stuff, and you get to look and you talk about a man who walked from West Virginia halfway and in a stagecoach in Booker T. Washington. That's why I say you gotta keep nailing that history away and telling them what, you could be the next. Because I think they're starting to figure it out now. Just like, for example, I'm not speaking on basketball, but I'm just giving an example. A young man probably end up at Howard, but if he don't, he understands that he can go right to that developmental league or he can play. But the fact that he signed with them,
right,
that's the impact it has.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just need to get a few more, if we can get us a couple of first rounders, again, in the HBCU in football, so it always opened the door. And I think that I really believe this. And then Latrell said it better than anybody tonight. This pandemic, you hated that people are passing away, but it's been a blessing. It have made all of us look at ourselves, including these student athletes. When Mama called, the HBC, let's understand this now, in 1890, the Moran Act was the land granted act to start the HBCUs. Because of who? Underprivileged. Black people, low-income white people. That's what the act was put in place for. So the more we can give back, now's a chance for everybody got to reach back. They doing it as far as you see in the bubble with basketball, they talking about Black Lives Matter. I kind of feel like it might be a duty for some of these student athletes to tap more into the HBCU universities. It might be a calling.
Because one of the things that, before we wrap up, you're both leaders of men, and there are things that I think families influence you, academics, things that have put you on this path. And we know when we talk about Black culture, fraternities and sororities are oftentimes, not for everyone, but for a lot of people, a big part of the Black culture. Our understanding is that you're both members of a fraternity. Could you just briefly talk about how the fraternities that you pledge and are members of influence who you are today?
Man, let's cut to the chase. We're the Q's. And at the end of the day, man, the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is the greatest thing in the history of the world. And the links that we have, when Carl called me the other day and said, "Hey, look, I need this," it was a no-brainer. I think what fraternities and sororities at the HBCU level give us, man, is it gives us a sense of being. Obviously, you go to an HBCU, and then once you become a part of the fraternity and sorority group, it gives you that much more. It gives you a different sense of being. It gives you a group, a network. Like I haven't talked to Coach Prunty in 2 or 3 years, other than text messages. But I know this: if I call him, it's all good. If Carl calls me, it's all good. If Vernon, if you call me, it's all good. And I think those are the things that that make our fraternity go. Coach Prunty understands this. There are guys on his team that are pledged Q, and I deal with them because I may not be their coach. I may not be their I may be an old ball player, but I'm their fraternity brother. I'm their chapter brother. And just for us to have the opportunity to do this and be a part of this. It's monumental, man. I mean, I'm just thankful, man, for you brothers to have us on here and to have, you know, four members of our fraternity, you know, be on here and do this. It's special. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Latrell said it, man. It's so emotional. You know, when I got chosen to become a part of this great fraternity, man, just think about it. Look what all took place. You know, at your alma mater, Howard. Just amazing. You know, here go a guy, man, from Chatham, Virginia. I don't know nobody in the town that's been in a fraternity or a sorority, man. And I get there and I see these guys and I go to the smoke and they talking about 3 undergrad brothers getting together with a graduate student in Thurkins Hall. It's amazing, man. One Friday, Drury, Friday evening. And then look, God thought enough to make me a part of this great fraternity. I don't want to sound biased, but I might be biased when it comes to the Pan-Atlantic Council because I believe in my heart that the greatest fraternity is Omega Psi Phi Incorporated to the day I die.
With that, Carl, I guess we'll wrap this episode up.
Well, I tell you what, Coach Prunty, Coach Scott, I do want to say, first of all, Coach Prunty, I do want to say this to you from the bottom of our hearts. I want to thank you, Dr. Harvey, everyone, Brother Gene over there, who's also, and Dr. Harvey, who are also members of this fabulous, great fraternity that we're a part of. I'm just, you know, you talk and you forget that these people are a part of our distinguished group. But I want to thank you for allowing us to host HRYF youth camp and other programs over there. And without you, Coach Prunty, man, coming over there, opening up your doors for us, you know, I'm serious. I mean this a lot, right? You didn't have to do it, but you did it anyway. And we are very grateful and thank you for opening up your doors. And hopefully, once we get out of this pandemic, we can continue to save lives and partner with you on these great opportunities. Coach Scott, you know, we go back a long time. And man, just to have you still as a friend, man, for life is amazing to me. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. And from me to you, if I could ever do anything for you guys, and you know that, we're here for you. You know that. Trust me. So I want to thank you for joining us this evening, being a part of this. And man, I can't wait till we come out of this pandemic so we can come down there and hang out with you guys, get something to eat and have a good time and catch up and have some fun, man. I really do. So thank you again.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, just to everybody, man. Look, I'm appreciative. Hey, Coach Prunty, hey man, one love. Hey, look, you know, hey, like after my game, the first thing I'm doing is checking your score and make sure you guys, I mean, you know, you guys are doing what you're supposed to do. Again, like Mark, Vic, I mean, I'm gonna try to steal them from you at some point because those are my but you know, but I'm glad, man. I mean, just I just appreciate this platform, man, and let's continue to do this, man, because you know, I think with everything that's going on with Black coaches, like, you know, with us and the West Coast Zoom stuff and everything's going on, man, we got to continue doing it, and we got to continue making sure that we stake our place, you know, in this game, you know, for sure. So one love.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you both, brothers, men, friends.
So for the last one, can we get one for the greatest fraternity of all time? Can we get a short one up?
All right.
All right.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Have a good night.